Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gertrude Marape. Welcome to Women and Leadership Owning Your Strength and Skill webinar, organized by young professionals. So I'm the currently outgoing Deputy Chairperson, Gauteng YP. So today we'll be basically talking about the history. We invited a speaker, Ashley, to basically talk to us about the challenges women face in corporate, in leadership, why women struggle to get to leadership roles. And he will sort of like take us through the history behind it and talk about the challenges and what are the things that young professional females can do to try and basically mitigate these challenges. And as we know, for example, despite a lot of advocacy groups out there basically advocating for women to be given opportunities in the leadership role. We all know that obviously the progress is still slow. I mean, if you look at the recent research study published by Forbes, which obviously shows that currently female CEOs, they only represent 7.4% globally. In the whole world. That shows that despite the advocacy and everyone else basically trying to advocate for women to take opportunities, it looks like women still don't get as many opportunities. So as young professionals, we felt that let's unpack this. Let's try and understand what are the barriers out there? What are the things that are preventing women to really take those leadership positions? Are they external factors? Are they internal factors? And what is it that we can do on our side? So with that, I'll hand over to my colleague, Brenda, who will then introduce the speaker. Over to you, Brenda.
Thank you, Gertrude. It is indeed an honor for me to be in this platform as a young woman myself, and I am currently the outgoing Deputy National Chairperson of Young Professionals in the Black Management Forum. And with not wasting any time, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker today, Mr. Ashley Rasibodza. Ashley is one of the most sought after facilitators, speaker, executive coach, business coach, and future trends analyst and commentator in South Africa. He is a member of Coaches and Mentors Association of South Africa. As a future trends analyst and commentator, he helps the audience understand the forces that are shaping the future right now. He also points the clues that they can use to help them to see their own futures personally and for their organizations. Prior to founding his company, Mwagorasi International, Ashley had a successful career within the financial services sector in two of the big four banks in South Africa, Standard Bank and ABSA. While still at ABSA, Ashley served as a chairperson of the Diversity and Inclusion Forum in Limpopo. Ashley served as the president of Polokwane Chamber of Business between 2016 and 2019. During the same period, he served as a deputy chairperson of Limpopo United Business Forum. Over and above running a successful coaching business, Ashley is currently serving as the chairperson of Realidwaba Foundation. Ashley believes that the reason why human beings and organizations are anxious of the future is because they lack a memory of the future. Through this consulting interventions, he empowers individuals and organizations to create a desirable future. And over to you, Mr. Ashley.
Thank you for those warm words and words of welcome. I didn't think you were talking about me there. I thought it was someone else, but I realized that no, it's me. And good evening, members of BMF, young professionals, members of BMF in general, and the leadership of BMF that is on this call. I'm very excited to be part of this session this evening, just to share with our friends, our colleagues, our sisters, our mothers, our cousins, how they can advance their careers or advance their aspirations to leadership roles in organizations. But the most important thing that I want to highlight this evening is that there are a lot of people that are advocating for women to ascend to leadership roles. But what is it that women are doing or are saying to say we are ready, and where we have been at leadership, we assumed leadership positions, what successes did we have? We need to start doing that. I know that our society doesn't encourage us to go out there and talk about our achievements. It's seen as bragging. We need to start to brag so that people and the community can know what we are doing. There is an African proverb that says, until the lion learns how to write their stories, we will always hear the story from the perspective of the hunter. This proverb is the same as what women are doing in leadership. There's a lot of achievement and there's a lot of things that women achieved as leaders. But they're not saying those stories. They're not telling the stories. And if you don't tell the stories as women, we'll always hear the story from the perspective of men. It's us men who will always say, no, you are not ready for that role. Because we're doing it for our own selfish reasons as men. So we need to start sharing your stories with the world. This proverb to me is very interesting because when a hunter goes out and suddenly manages to kill a lion, they won't tell you how much they struggled before they killed that lion. So they'll just say, no, yeah, I came back with a trophy. I managed to kill that lion, but they struggled. So we only hear the story from the perspective of the hunter. We don't know how much the lion fought. So we don't know how much women are fighting in organizations to ascend to those leadership positions. We don't know how well they're doing while they're in those roles. I have an example, of a BMF branch that I belong to, the Central branch, and our chairperson has done very well for the branch, since she assumed, her role. So women can do great things. They can achieve great things. So last month, it was Women's Month. We saw there were a lot of events, celebrating contribution of women to the struggle to end the apartheid system in South Africa. Today, we are faced with a different struggle. And that is how to create organizational cultures that are conducive to women to take up leadership roles in organizations. Let me share with you some interesting statistics. According to Stats SA as of 2018, 41.6% of households in South Africa were female-headed. And even in families where men are present, they are not usually effective in managing households. Many of them, or many of us, are still stuck in medieval roles for men. Dr. Begin-Fega, which most of you might know, who is an economic advisor, a strategist at SE Advisory, and also a former advisor in the presidency, wrote an article in the Business Report of the 14th of August, 2020. And she made the following remarks. She said, it is not enough to celebrate Women's Month when men have brought the country's economy to a grinding halt and have inflicted so much pain on women, we need to call on and support women to take on their rightful place in society. She goes on to say, women leadership is required more than ever, not as a token to tick compliance box, but their natural gift of caring, nurture, and inclusive type of leadership men don't have. Dr. Mfeka went on and said, men must embrace women in the mainstream economy and be the agents of such inclusion across the spectrum of our societies. Increasingly, research is indicating that as more women ascend to leadership positions, the better are the outcomes and contribution to economic growth. Besides the appropriate call for justice and gender equality, the critical hallmark of the call for women representation in key leadership positions and employment is the impact to economic growth. I think that was a very powerful article because it explained exactly, what women can do when they're in leadership roles and what is the role of men. Men must support and encourage women to go into those roles because they qualify. We have a lot of educated women in South Africa. Some of them were highly educated than men. So let's learn a bit from history about the roles women played in leadership. History is important because we can have, you don't have to show the slides. Go back to the previous slide. Okay. So history is important for us to understand where we come from so that we can chart a way forward or develop a strategy for the future. You can go to the next slide, Mamelo. Another, again, next slide. Thank you. So I'm going to share some examples with you, and you'll agree with me that women have, in fact, been taking their talents to their own stage for generations. Right? Consider, these examples. If there's a lady called Julia Child. She's the wife of an American diplomat who persevered in the male-dominated world of gourmet kitchen to become a chef, entrepreneur, and television personality, who, a decade after her death, she remained the face of French cooking in North America. If you Google her name, you will see how much she has achieved. And the other popular one is Coco Chanel. The ladies will know Coco Chanel, who behind the stereotypical dressed up fashion model, she was a shrewd business mind that connected high fashion to personal power. You can remember she brought us what we call bell bottoms, Chanel No. 5, and a litany of memes on social media attesting to her make no apologies attitude and clear savvy of the human spirit. Bringing closer to home, let's talk about Charlotte Maxeke. She was an activist, one of the first Black women graduates in South Africa, and one of the first South Africans to fight for freedom from exploitative and social conditions of African women. Please go to the next slide. Now, as you can see, women themselves influence the evolution of women in leadership. And what are the other factors that influence the evolution of women in leadership? If you look backwards, there was an increase in international trade, which expanded literally and mental horizons. There were 2 world wars which influenced art and culture, also shifted women to the front lines of the workforce as men were conscripted to military duty. Men were busy fighting in the war, and we needed people to run the economy. So women started going out and assuming roles that they didn't assume before. They started taking up leadership roles. They started taking up jobs that were meant for men in the past. And post the war, the economy was growing and men could not meet the demands of what the economy required. So there was a need for more employees as the economy was growing. And that increased momentum of women coming into the working world, getting out of their homes and working equally, as men. As it was mentioned during my introduction, that I'm chairperson of Reality Foundation. And as the foundation, we have just recently conducted a desktop study on the representation of women in leadership roles in the public sector, in the private sector, and in civil society. And I can say that the results of the study is a discussion for another day, because I realized that we haven't moved that much. We haven't achieved a lot in terms of making sure that women take up their rightful roles in leadership positions in organizations. And I suggest that the foundation should partner with BMF to go deeper and conduct further studies to understand barriers to women advancing to senior leadership roles in organizations. Next slide, please. What is it that you are required? What qualities or what virtues or characteristics does one require to become a successful leader? This applies to anyone, whether being a man or a woman. So there's nothing that says only women can have this or only men can have this. I mean, I know that there are a lot of programs at business schools that focus on women. There are women executive development programs, and there are executive development programs in the mainstream. Women can also go to attend those programs. I don't know why there is a specific program for women, because I think that if we want to talk about equity and equality, men and women should be exposed to the same skills so that they can compete on the same platform. So you say to become a leader or a successful leader, you need to have or show professionalism. You need to have communication skills. You need to have what I call emotional competence. Emotional competence talks to you responding at the right level of emotions. Sometimes they say people are overreacting or are emotional. It's good to be emotional, but you must respond at the right level, not overreact. Critical thinking is also a very important skill. You need to have a bit of instinct. And finally, you need to have confidence. If you're aspiring to become a leader anywhere, and you examine yourself and you realize that you don't have all of these skills, go out there and start empowering yourself so that by the time you assume a leadership role, those skills are in place. You are able to get in there and stay there. We don't want you to assume a leadership role and after 6 months, you step down because you didn't have what it takes in terms of the soft skills that are required. Next slide, please. So there are barriers and benefits to women leadership. We'll start with the barriers, right? So they're internal, they're external and internal. External, we are referring to things that are out of your control, the things that are happening in the organization. And the internal things that they are within your control, they are happening to you, or you are in control of. You can say, I'm going to do this, and you do it. You are in control. So I'm saying external barriers are those found in the workplace environment, social circles, or home life, anywhere you as a person interact and spend time. Examples include hostile co-workers or supervisors. We do experience, those kind of hostile environments. And another environment that we find, as women is that, which is a barrier, sometimes you have to carry for an aging parent, or we have a child at home with special needs, and which at the end leaves little energy or freedom for recharging or creativity. By the time you have to work in the evening or come to work in the next day, you're tired, you're exhausted, because when you got home, you had to look after your aging parent or a sickly child. In Johannesburg, it's worse. When things were normal, you spend 2 hours, if you're lucky, a day commuting between work and home. And that sometimes leaves you stressed and drained before the workday begins. So when you get to work, you're already tired. You can't get that creativity and productivity out of you. And the other important thing is lack of direction or goals on a project or in the workplace generally. Sometimes some workplaces you find that there's no direction. People are just doing as they wish. And it becomes a barrier. If you don't have a strong character, you can't operate where there are no rules. You spend not to cope and not to enjoy the roles. But if you look at, please move to the next slide there. If you look at internal barriers compared to external, internal barriers are the far most challenging. So these are walls, blocks, diversions that some women have described them as concrete, built up over years of training, conditioning, trauma, and experience. And this has a tendency of manifesting into anxieties, phobias, physical issues, lack of concentration, and depression. If you go through a long period, people telling you that you're not good enough, it weighs down on your self-confidence. And there are people, and it's us men who sometimes do that to women, to say, you're not gonna go anywhere, you're fine in that food. And that becomes an internal barrier because you tend to internalize it. But you can work on yourself once you recognize or realize that you have some internal barriers that you have to deal with. So both internal and external factors can generally affect leadership performance when you are in a leadership role by influencing how you make decisions, creating negativity, and draining your energy. Because if you're not in a good mood, you're going to be drained. You're not going to be able to be creative. And that's what you need as a leader, or as an aspiring leader, right? But how can we deal with these barriers? Next slide. How can we deal with these barriers? Very important. There are two things to remember. two things I want you to remember, colleagues. That one, we can't control other people or situations, only our reactions to them. So we cannot control what your boss, what your colleagues think about you or do to you or say to you, but you can choose how you react, right? That's number one, very important. If you can master that, you're on your way to success, you are assigned a leadership role and you'll be able to stay there. The second thing is that within each barrier, there is a benefit, right? An opportunity to learn, do things differently, and break down the concrete and evolve. Because you are aware that these are the barriers that are in front of you, preventing you from progressing in your career. Once you become aware and fight those barriers and you break down the concrete, you're going to evolve and you're going to move forward. So we are conditioned in our society to give our power to external forces. We always say that, it's up to a doctor, not us, if we are well. We want the doctor to tell us we are well or not. It's up to a school system, not our instincts, if we are learning at an appropriate pace. Because we learn differently. There's a concept of left brain, right brain. And the schooling system in South Africa is more of a left brain system. But if you're a left brain child, they tend to say they don't understand how to manage. So we tend to put people in boxes. And as human beings, you can't put human beings in boxes. We are very, very dynamic, right? And we also say it's the government's fault that there are few jobs. And the list goes on and on. So we always find a way to blame someone as human beings. It's not only women only, but human beings. We tend to have an external locus of control. We think our success depends on some things that are happening outside of us, right? But let me tell you this evening, each of you can, however, take back your choices and your power. You can take that. It doesn't matter what your boss is saying to you, what your colleague is saying to you, or your partner, your spouse who's not supportive. You can take back that power. Your coworker might be hostile towards you, and what steps can we do to remedy the situation? You're experiencing all of these things at work that I'm talking about. And you are saying, at the entry-level management role, I'm experiencing these challenges from my co-workers. What will happen to me when I become a leader in this organization? So you're thinking of staying there and not aspiring for leadership roles. So what we need to do, colleagues, we need to pause, reflect on our reaction, and learn from it. Because every time we experience these things, we tend to react. And we need to understand how are we reacting and learn from those and grow as individuals and develop what we call thick skin so that when we become leaders one day, we can understand how to deal with people and understand that there are people who won't necessarily like you because now you're a leader. But it's not because you're a leader, it's because the people didn't even like you when you're not a leader. So if you want to be liked, go and sell ice cream. But if you want to be a leader, you need to develop a thick skin. So now let's focus on some strategies that are on the screen there that will help you to deal with internal barriers, which is something that we're in control of. You can't control whether the company downsizes or whether you get that promotion or not, You go to an interview, you don't get the role, you come back and say, the organization is not fair and all that. But what you can control is what happens inside of you. So you need to develop some emotional competencies. First one is what I call self-awareness. You need to know your emotions, strengths, and challenges. And importantly, knowing how your emotions affect your behavior. If you know that when you are angry, you are not able to engage constructively, then you will have a strategy to say, you know what, when I'm angry, I'll take 5 minutes to cool down, then come back and engage constructively. You always have to be self-aware. And self-awareness leads to personal mastery. So you are able to then master your emotions and avoid going to that state that you don't want, that doesn't make you productive. And the second one is self-management. So here is knowing how to control your behaviors, setting and working towards your goals. Most of us set goals at the beginning of the year. But if I ask you, when last did you review your goals? Some of you will tell me, oh, end of January, then I put them away. I haven't checked them ever since. And the third one is social awareness. Social awareness is the ability to understand and respect the perspectives of others. And you apply this knowledge to interactions with people from diverse backgrounds. As a leader, you are going to engage with colleagues who are from diverse backgrounds, customers, stakeholders. So you need to have strong social awareness so that you don't disrespect other people. You might not be doing it intentionally, but if you're not socially aware, there are certain things that other people might see, as not acceptable, but you are not aware because your social awareness is low. The other point is good relationship skills. You need to know how to establish and keep rewarding positive relationships with friends, family, and others from a wide range of backgrounds. At the workplace, it's important to build relationships because you're going to need support and help from a lot of people in the workplace for you to go up and stay there in a leadership role. And the last one is responsible decision-making. Here I'm talking about ability to identify the impact of your choices on yourself and others using empathy, relationship skills, self-awareness, and social awareness to make decisions. Empathy is very important, as a leader. I know sometimes as leaders, we are very hard on results. Yes, be hard on results, but be soft on people, right? People go through a lot of things. You might be asking me, or you have given me a deadline, and I failed to deliver on the deadline. Find out what is wrong. You might find that I'm going through a personal challenge, and then you can refer me to someone who can help me. But you must show empathy, but still be hard on results. Next slide, please. So my call to action, what is it that you can do when we leave here, right? Number one, you need to set career goals. Don't be at the mercy, of other people. I like saying to my clients to say that if you're not happy where you are, move. You're not a tree, right? If your goal is you're aspiring to be at a certain level in an organization in 5 years, and that is not happening, look for other organizations that can give you that opportunity. And please make sure that your goals are written down. You have medium to long-term goals. It's very important because your long-term goals will motivate you to do things that we have to do now. You might have to study now so that in the future you can become a CFO of an organization. Secondly, you need to understand your internal and external barriers to become a successful leader. Go home and ask yourself, what are my internal and external barriers that are stopping me from going up the corporate ladder? Because all of us want to go up. No one can tell me that they want to stay where they are until they retire. And don't forget to focus on your leadership strengths. If you understand what your strengths are as a leader, focus on those. Because those will make you outstanding while you're working on your weaknesses. And focus on the most important things. Focus on the 20% of the things that will give you 80% of the results. Don't focus on everything. Understand what is important in your organization. If it's values, make sure that you rate outstanding on the values, because that is important in the organization. And if you're given an opportunity to come and present at a meeting or you're part of a strat plan, make sure that you provide original thinking. They must know that they cannot do without your thinking. Every time there's something that they're engaging or discussing as leaders, they must say, let's go find out what Debo has to say about this. Because you position yourself as a thought leader in that area, right? And the other point is that you need to get yourself an executive sponsor within your organization. It might not necessarily be your line manager. Identify someone in the organization that you are aspiring to move into their role, or you like their leadership style, or you like where they came from and how they got where they got to. Go to them and say, I am aspiring to this role, not necessarily their role, but I don't know what to do. Can you please be my executive sponsor and formalize it and say, we'll only meet once in 3 months, set out the terms of reference. You know why you want to do that? That person is going to be your sponsor. When they're in leadership meetings with other leaders and they talk about opportunities, you'll say, I know a very bright woman who can occupy that role. And it won't be coming from your line manager, because if it comes from a line manager, it might be seen as you are being favored. But if you position yourself within the organization among other executives as a person who can do well in other roles, you will be considered, because people will talk about you. You have someone who defends you in leadership meetings. And please keep on empowering yourself. It does not only mean that you go to an MBA and other qualifications. There are a lot of things that you can study. Emotional intelligence, creative thinking, innovation. There are things that you need, in the modern corporate world that will make you successful. Qualifications alone are not enough. There are a lot of people who are sitting with PhDs, CAs, who are not in the roles that they want to be, because there's competition. And people who are in those roles have certain qualities that made them to be there, right? And also, we need to identify networking opportunities that will assist you to achieve your goals. You need to know where to be, where to go. You need to, if you're not a member of BMF, join BMF, because you're going to network with like-minded people, with captains of industry, with leaders in industry, and that will enrich your network and also increase your opportunities in terms of accessing opportunities, right? And there's one thing that I've seen or I've realized about people. We don't talk about what we want in organizations. We are at the mercy of our leaders. We must say what exactly we want, so that when the opportunity comes, they know that you raised your hand. But if you don't raise your hand, they will go to someone else who said, I'm available, I'm ready. And also you need to advise you to get the services of an accountability partner outside of your organization. An accountability partner can be in the form of an executive coach. So that is the person who will help you or who will hold you accountable for the goals that you have set for yourself. So you engage with them, they'll help you to deal with other issues within the organization. That's part of investing in yourself, because you need to keep on investing in yourself so that you can grow. But lastly, no matter how you're feeling, just show up. No matter how you're feeling, rock those heels, show up. Thank you, colleagues. I hope you learned one or two things, and I wish you all the best in your journey of becoming leaders in South Africa, in both corporate, public sector, NPOs, and other sectors of the economy. Amel, you can go to the next slide. I think my details are there. So my contact details are there. Those of you who want to engage with me, I'm available to engage outside this session so that I can see how we can assist you and empower you to move to the next level. Thank you. I hand over to the facilitator.
Thanks so much, Ashley. Few points definitely I've learned as well from here, that personal mastery is basically the most important. We need to understand ourselves, understand our emotions, social awareness as well. But I just want to find out, because I hear this a lot of times, that women are emotional. And what is your view on that? Because I find that, well, I know we are different, right? And at the same time, we need to embrace our individuality. And for women to ascend to leadership roles, we are different from men. So we cannot necessarily be seen to be like men. So what is your take on this view that I think keeps coming across? I come across a lot of times where people say women are emotional. And how best do you think maybe they need to handle if they are truly emotional?
Thanks for that question. So first of all, we network differently. So you must network using your strength, right? You don't want to go to a bar to network. You don't have to go to a bar to meet other, colleagues from the industry on a Friday afternoon after work, have few drinks. You don't have to do that. Women network in their own way. They find a way that is suitable for you. I mean, like BMF is a good space, for networking, because all of us know why we are here, and you know exactly who you might find here. So you know exactly what's the caliber of BMF members, and you go there prepared, knowing that if I bump into, let's say we have a leader coming to talk to us on a specific topic, maybe I had former BMF president or a leader in corporate, you prepare your question and say, I have a 3-minute pitch that I'm going to engage with that leader, because you must prepare. Networking is not accidental. You need to plan. You need to know who you're likely to meet and be ready for that, engagement. You must always have that, 3-minute, elevator pitch, because if you meet that person, you should be able to say what you want to say to them in 3 minutes and leave a mark and leave an impact. So you need to decide which platforms of networking you are going to use, which ones are working for you and which ones are not, because you can be fatigued from networking events. You attend all the events, but at the end, nothing comes out of those events. And the second question, very interesting question about, women being emotional. Everyone is emotional, right? Everyone, both men and women. You're supposed to be emotional, but it's the level of emotions that determine whether you're going to be creative or not. Because if somebody does something very minor and you respond, you become highly charged, and the whole day you're not able to focus because somebody did something that would not even affect, the bottom line of the company, or some that you don't like personally, right? So you have your values, your value system that had an impact on your emotions, and the whole day you are not able to be creative, and your role requires you to become, creative. So it's not about women. So it's about, you can learn to emotional mastery. You can learn to respond at the right level. You need to respond. You need to show emotions. Mm-hmm. Because without emotions, then we are not human beings. We are robots. Human beings have emotions, but we must show emotions that will support our goals, that will support, the team that we are leading. If you want to motivate the team, your emotions should show that you are caring. So being a woman and being too emotional is not a bad thing. You must use it to your strength. You must, when you know that you have to motivate people, when you know that somebody in your team has lost loved one, you likely are the best person, to be able to talk to that person. Because of who women are. But in terms of moving into leadership, we can learn those skills and how to manage our emotions. It's not automatic that because I'm a man, I'll be able to master my emotions. Because you're a woman, you are emotional. That's stereotypes. Those are stereotypes. And those are the things that we keep on saying to make sure that you stay down there, we don't give women opportunities. Because we say, they're emotional. Everyone is emotional. You're allowed to be emotional. They're not robots. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Mamel, I don't know if you want to say something. Okay. So the next.
So just to.
Oh, okay. No, you can go ahead.
Yeah, just to add on what you just asked about emotions. I lead. I'm a leader myself at work. So you come across a situation where, as women, we have that time of the month where things are just hectic, that time of the month where, when women speak about that time of the month, they speak about that time of the month.
Yes.
And the time of the month is usually when, something happens, and, so the emotions, you tend to have mixed feelings, you tend to have mixed emotions. And some of them, some of us, we get period pains. And I know just last week, there was a woman in my team that had serious period pains. And there was a presentation thereafter of one of our major clients at work, and trying to explain it to our male counterparts, saying that, hey, this is the situation. This woman is a principal of the team, and she can't make it because of this particular situation. So is it going to be that difficult for men to understand, or maybe corporate South Africa to understand, or give some sense of empathy to the fact that there's just that day of the month and it treats women differently? They tend to respond differently to that week or so of mixed emotions. How do you deal with that in the corporate world? Should there be a policy in place regarding that, or what should happen? How do we deal with it as women? Thank you.
Thanks. Very interesting question. So some of the things that we as men, we use against women, not to progress in the corporate or in the public sector. We'll say, if we promote her and then she's still young, she's within her rights. She may want to start a family and she's gonna go on maternity leave, right? So those are some of the things that us as men will start thinking about. And like what you said, that time of the month. So we need to start understanding, if I'm a leader in corporate or in wherever, I need to understand what is the makeup of my team, right? And the strength that the team has, right? And if I think that with all these things, with all these weaknesses that I perceive as weaknesses as a man, that women might be emotional, there might be that time of the month, but at the end, the benefit is still that the skills that they have, besides emotions and other things, they still contribute to the success of the team. I'll then start working on a policy and changing a culture within my organization. Because it's the culture that will be against or will perpetuate some of those things, to say, women, they're going to be emotional when they're on their period pains. Because we never had a situation where a woman was a leader in this organization. It was all men. So we don't know how to deal with what we don't know, right? We don't know that. We are not able to deal with it. So very interesting. On the 6th of October next month, our foundation is hosting few CEOs, and we'll be discussing the impact of organizational culture on women ascending to senior leadership roles. I'll send that invite through to BMF members. But what is important, back to your question, is that remember, these women that we are talking about that are having that time of the month, these women are our parents, they are our sisters, they are our wives. So how would you want your sister or your wife or your mother or your aunt to be treated like when they are in that mode or in that mood? It's part of employee wellness. It must be integrated into the, and call it what it is. I mean, a lot of companies are, globally are having, crèches at near to work premises, so that, because women are the one who will be taking kids to school, they can have the kids there, and during lunch I can go and check on my baby, and that increases productivity because I'm motivated. I know that my baby or my child is okay. So it's about organizational cultures, because it's difficult to break certain cultures because they've been there for long. And it's only when women ascend into these roles and start challenging some stereotypes and understanding what other young leaders, women leaders, are going through. Because you cannot fight nature, right? Because what we're trying to do, we are trying to fight nature, to say, if you are not feeling well and you have an important presentation, you have to come and stand in front of a client to present. We are fighting nature, and you can't fight nature. Nature, at the end of the day, it needs its space. It will evolve, through time on its own. But importantly, yes, we need to start looking at policies and organizational culture in terms of challenges that women face over and above what men face at work.
Okay, thanks. Just one more question from my side. I think there was a study done, I think it's Forbes, that obviously, I think you touched on it. Yeah, you did touch on it as well earlier on, that there's also an issue of confidence gap between male and basically women and men. What are the key critical things that you think women need to do to sort of like to build that self-confidence?
You know, there's sometimes you tell yourself that I'm not good enough, right? Mm-hmm. You say I'm not good enough. And that came from your conditioning. Either somebody told you, your teacher at school some days said, you're not going to end anywhere. You know, you won't even graduate at university. And either your parents or somebody that is close to you with influence that you look up to say something to you, and you take it to heart, and it becomes part of you. It sits on your subconscious mind. And every time you're supposed to go on stage, something tells you, no, don't go, you won't succeed, you're not good enough, right? So it takes a lot of self-awareness to say, what are those internal barriers that I'm suffering from that makes me to feel that I'm not good enough? But go back and look at times when you were good enough, right? Go back and look at your successes. You passed matric well, you were admitted at university, you graduated, you made it at an interview. There are a whole lot of other things that you need to do to keep yourself motivated every day. Hence, it's important to set goals, because those goals you're going to achieve every day. You're going to achieve some goals weekly, monthly, and that start building up and become something big. So don't wait for one big thing at the end of the journey. Enjoy the journey every day. You know, record those successes that you're having. You said, this week I'm going to run every day for 7 days, and you did it. That is an achievement. You're good enough for that. You showed up. You know, but very important, you know, get yourself a coach. Even top executives have coaches. Good presidents have coaches. Top athletes have coaches. You can't do it on your own. Mm. You need support. You know, invest in yourself. It's part of investing in yourself. You know, I take 10% of my earnings annually to invest in myself. Either attending a powerful program by an international speaker or facilitator, so that I can be on top of my game. You know, you can have that confidence. You can develop it because you have knowledge. You know that I have it in me. So very important that go back and see what makes you to think I'm not good enough. Because most of the time, those things are not true. They are lies. People tell you that, oh, you cannot speak in front of people. We can train you to do that. Yeah, if you're teachable, we can help you. But if you're not teachable, no one can help you. So if something's important enough for you to achieve, make yourself teachable.
Okay.
Hope I've answered your question.
Yes, no, you did. Thanks. I don't know if there's questions, Brenda. Maybe we should, I don't know if anyone has questions. I see many comments. I think the first one is from Ayanda. She says, such an insightful session, definitely took a few pointers. Thank you, Ashley. Zanele says, I like the idea of finding yourself an executive sponsor and the accountability partner. And I think that's something that in myself, like when I started early in my career, I didn't think I can just approach any executive and find myself an executive sponsor within the same organization. So definitely something that I to take. Tamsar, lead yourself. Message, we must learn how seasons and environment affect us. External barriers in brackets, understanding the impact of premenstrual syndrome. Such internal barriers is important, and managing these hormonal conditions must be deliberate and intentional. Nandipa, loving the insightful, I think I've missed it. Loving the insightful, I think I've missed this. Scroll up a little bit. Yes, loving the insightful conversation is speaking to me. Thank you. I think it's Refilwe. Would like to also see how we can align consciousness in the corporate space. I think that's I think it's more like a question, I guess. How do you align this to Ubuntu consciousness in the corporate space?
You see,
okay.
There's this talk about Ubuntu, and I haven't had much spoken about Ubuntu now since the pandemic have started in South Africa. I haven't, surprisingly, but very important is that in corporate, we know what corporates are about profits, right? There's too much focus on profit, and we forget the concept of Ubuntu. And whereas in South Africa, because we are in a developmental state, you cannot do business in a developmental state without focusing on Ubuntu. Because Ubuntu will mean to me that you're not going to find people who are ready, either clients to be exploited. Let's look at banking, right? Specifically, let's look at banking, how we've evolved from a Mzansi account, because people were unbanked. So you come in here as an international bank, and you think you're gonna just dominate the market and all that, and you find that too. Majority of the people are unbanked, and they stay in villages, and they have to catch 2 taxis to get to town to withdraw their money. So you then begin to say, how do I make money and at the same time practice Ubuntu? Meaning lifting up the community. Mm-hmm. And as well as how do you, in South Africa, we have a history where Black people were not given opportunities in corporate. So how do you make sure that we support, Black women and Black men, young men and women in corporate to get to the same level as a white young lady or young man who had resources in the past? So it has to be deliberate to say, let's try and get this person to this level so that they can perform at the same level. Because if you leave me there, you're just going to, at the end of the year, say, expectations not met. And HR will do the process and they'll work you out. But if you put me on a proper program, most of the time, these graduate recruitment programs, they work, they don't work, because some they just say, go and rotate. But they don't necessarily, support, because when you come in, I think one must do a competency analysis and understand your strengths and weaknesses and focus on developing your weaknesses for that program, so that at the end of the program, you can say, I came in here, I was not confident to speak in front of people. I joined a Toastmasters club that was sponsored by my corporate. Now I can present, I can sell to customers, because most corporates are about selling. And they can then absorb you. But if you come in and nothing happens in terms of your competencies, you work, and at the end of the program, they say, we can't absorb you because we don't think you'll be able to sell in front of our customers. You don't have communication skills. Because we didn't show Ubuntu, we focused on the profits. We said, we're going to get in these people and tick a box that we've taken in some graduates, Black graduates, and we get some B points, and life moves on, life goes on. So we need to really apply our minds in terms of what is it that we want to get out, and what kind of a South Africa do you want to build, and what kind of a corporate do you want to build? Because corporates that will have and show Ubuntu, in their culture, will have a competitive advantage, will be employer of choice. Let's talk about employer of choice. So they will have the best talent. So you have to invest first, then you will reap the rewards later as a corporate.
Oh, thanks, Ashley. So from me would be, how do you answer the question of what's mentorship without resources? We mentor young women to become what they've become. They fulfill that stage. And obviously there needs to be an end result as to what they have fulfilled, So the unemployment rate being so high, are we creating, or are we saying that, okay, after this mentorship program, go look for a job? Or are we saying, go be an entrepreneur? And then if you are an entrepreneur, how do we then capacitate you to become a successful entrepreneur? How do we capacitate you to become a successful leader in corporate South Africa? Bearing in mind the challenges that our country has, how do you balance the issue of the resource factor? Thank you.
No, thank you for that interesting question. So I'm very passionate about entrepreneurship, and the most important thing and how we can approach this is to look at the whole ecosystem, right? Education ecosystem, because that contributes a lot. We spend a lot of time in the education system. I mean, from preschool up to university. How many years do you spend there? Let's say almost 20 years, if not more, you spend in the education system, right? And if you look specifically in South Africa, focus of basic education is for people to pass matric, right? I mean, the Minister of Education will come January. We had so many university passes, so many bachelor passes, and that the president says, well done. There's improvement from last year to this year. But what happens to those people afterwards? Do we have enough spaces at universities to accommodate those students that have passed, or at TVET colleges? So we need to start looking at different exit points in the schooling system. But people should have a choice of what they want to do. But entrepreneurship should be part of our school curriculum. If I'm in high school, I should have a choice, to study maybe new venture creation, level 2. And by the time I get to matric, I have a certificate, NQF level 2 in new venture creation. I have some sort of idea of what happens in business. So it will influence what I do when I go to university, what I go and study. So I can go and study something that will allow me to start my own venture. Very important. So we're using the same resources. We just have to use our time wisely. Nowadays, it's very easy. I mean, there's a lot of open source software and other free Wi-Fi that communities provide. We can find ways to start empowering the individual first and helping them to be able to develop innovative business ideas, because startups are not expensive to start. It's when you want to grow a business that will need money. But starting a business doesn't need a lot of money. But it depends on what kind of business.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Because there is a startup, there is a small business. So startups are not meant to make money from day one. They somebody has seen an opportunity or a problem they want to solve, then they do that. There's normally resources out there, investors willing to invest. But our kids are not empowered with that knowledge to say, if I'm interested in starting my own venture, or what options do I have after matric or after graduating to look for a job? No, maybe I'm going to start my own business. Yes, there's a constraint in terms of resources, but we should go an extra mile because we realize that there are a lot of people who are going to rely on the state in terms of social grants if we don't intervene now, right? We need to invest the money now so that we avoid a future that we don't want. So we can make choices today that will affect our future. Resources will always be a constraint in every economy. And it can't be an excuse, but it depends on how hard and how much we want this. We need to create a culture of entrepreneurship so that those that want to start businesses, they can do that. Now, what you see happening is that I'm a graduate, unemployed. After 2 years, I decide that I'm going to register a business because I'm unemployed, right? I'm not necessarily, but I'm looking for a job. That's all I want. But because I don't have a job, I saw somebody running a business and they are making money, then I go register a business. And I don't become successful because your why of going into that is not good enough. So we need to make it fashionable. People should say, wow, I'm an entrepreneur. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to solve. So I think BMF should also play a role, especially within the student chapter, to say, how can we start coming up with programs at that level to empower students to start thinking about entrepreneurship as an alternative form of employment. It has to be a culture. A culture is when people start seeing things as acceptable to do. I mean, in South Africa, they say the most popular job is to become a politician because we have seen politicians doing things that they do, enjoying a good life, and then everyone wants to find a way, to be a councillor and move up. We can do the same way as what entrepreneurship is doing, like in places like in Silicon Valley in the US. But we have to find our own way of doing it. It doesn't have to be resource heavy. It has to be a way that is sustainable, but also doesn't take a lot of resources. But that has to do with innovation. Are we teaching innovation at our schools? Because innovation is a process like creativity. Anybody can be creative, anyone can be innovative. You can be taught how to become innovative and how to become creative. I hope I've answered your question to a certain extent, but we can talk about this subject the whole night because I'm very passionate about entrepreneurship. The program that I run, in entrepreneurship. I mean, the next 3 months from October to December, I'm going to be running 3 programs. The first month will be focusing on innovation and creativity, helping those that don't know where to start. Because there are a lot of people who have been affected either by COVID, some have lost their jobs, some had their businesses closing down, and now they want to start all over again. But we're saying, let's start something that won't go down like it did the last time. Then the second month will focus on how to generate a business idea and talk about almost 31 business models. And the last section will focus on how to develop a pitch that will make sure that you get investors investing in your business. So those are some of the things that we need to make them fashionable. Creativity should be fashionable. Innovation should be fashionable. And it doesn't have to be something expensive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley.
Okay, pleasure.
Okay. One thing I think for me is just a comment that you made earlier on about the importance of stretching yourself, basically raising your hand. I've seen it, I mean, from my own personal experience, because you will come across, as you mentioned this earlier on, actually, that you will come across some difficult people who just don't want to give you opportunities. But by stretching yourself and raising your hand, it actually makes other people know what you can do, and they'll know your capabilities. And when an opportunity rises, they will immediately remember you. So that's stuff that I've seen it in my own career, and I think it also contributed to be where I am. Because I found myself, there was a point in my career where I found myself struggling sort of like with corporate issues, politics, but then I kept on volunteering. And sometimes I think even as people, we sometimes we can underestimate that something can start as small. Say, for example, you're given a task at work and it may look like it's small, but if you take it and you run with it, it can actually grow and end up being this huge thing that now suddenly everyone starts to see you. They start now to believe in your abilities, and they start knowing what are the things that you can do. So definitely that point, I can attest to that. I've seen it in my career as well. And then one more thing. I think this one, speaking up in meetings, what's your, like, what advice can you give to women? Like how can they be impactful in meetings? Because I think one of the things that I've seen, because I'm in the mining industry, and mining industry, it's a male dominated industry. And my role is I basically provide mines with process flow sheet solutions. So different mines, different commodities, South Africa, different countries, continent. And obviously, a lot of clients that I deal with, it's male who've been in the industry for like 30 years, 35 years. And here is Gertrude sitting in the meeting with just over 10 years of experience. And you have to convince this person that I have a solution for you. Like what advice can you give to women sitting in meetings, having to stand up there and speak confidently and convince people who've been in the industry, who've been in the game for years?
Very, very interesting question. So you find those men who will say, we have been doing it this way.
Yes.
And it was working. But
yes.
It working doesn't mean is the best way of doing it, right? Doesn't mean it's the best way of doing it. So every time you find yourself in a position where you have to convince someone, you need to understand where they are coming from, what is their point of view, because you need to understand their thinking. It's not about you, right? Don't make it to be about you as a woman. Say, this person has been working in this industry for 30 years, and this is how they've been doing things, right? So show them the advantages of the solution that you are proposing, versus how they're doing things now. To say it will save you time, it will, do this, to understand those advantages or benefits of using a product. Because that's selling. So selling, you can use it everywhere, in meetings and all that, but you need to understand the benefits. I mean, even if you have to convince your leaders or your bosses, you need to show them the benefits of why we should take this route or this approach. I mean, normal or fair people or normal people, I mean, who apply superior logic superior logic will prevail, and they'll say, no matter how young you are or junior you are, I think you are making sense. And that way you position yourself as a thought leader. Every time when that client thinks about when they have a challenge at their mind, you're going to call Gertrude. They're going to call you before anyone else. remember the other competitors, and people might be older than you, have been in the industry, but you now, there's technology, you're bringing in new technology to the table, and you're making the guy's life easier. But don't give up, because at the beginning, you'll feel that there's a pushback. You need to be resilient. It's not only about being a young woman or what. It happens like that. In sales, in corporates, when you come up with something, you have to show me the benefit, and initially there's resistance. It's like when your child comes and asks you for something, the first answer is no, right? Before you even hear what they're saying. So you must think that way. You must know that either my boss or a client might say no when I come with a new proposal or solution, but I must show them the benefit of that solution. Then you have won them for the rest of your lives. There's a say that goes like, victory loves preparation. So rather over-prepare than under-prepare. When you go to a client, make sure that you over-prepare. And the client will see that, or your leader in a meeting will see that you made effort to prepare, you understand your story, you understand the industry, and you understand the impact of the decisions or the advice that you are giving. What impact will it have on the organization going forward, and what the benefits will be. But don't give up. Make sure you show up and be consistent, and that's the way you're going to build your brand. Because at the end, you need to bring a strong brand in the industry and people know that they cannot mess up around with you. When somebody must come to you with facts, and otherwise you're not going to take any other thing that is not factual.
Okay. Thanks. Reading comments, we do Melo says, thank you for the strong message, talking to my heart. Zanelle, I'm hoping I'm reading it correctly. Ashley, thank you very much for the insightful session. Where can one get more info on the innovation and creativity sessions that you are going to be running over the next 3 months?
I'm gonna put my website here that they can then send information or check the sessions. So I haven't posted them yet, but just take this website.
Okay. And then Chimanga, I hope I'm reading your name correctly. It says, very important question. I think it's referring to the one that I was asking earlier. And I agree, it is important to acknowledge their point of view first. That's what you are responding to. Even acknowledge the advantages in their way of doing things, and then show them how much more efficient your solution is or value add. Okay, that's your, I'm not sure if you have any, and if you want to add anything.
No, thank you, Gertrude. I'm covered for now. Nothing on my side.
Yeah, I think if there are no further, let me see if there's any questions from anyone. I see on the question, and Pumeza says, thank you, Coach Ashley, enlightening pointers. I don't know if there's anyone who has any questions. You can raise your hand. Okay, I think looks like we're coming to the end of our webinar. So I think from my take out from this, it's definitely self-awareness. It's key. We need to know ourselves, understand our emotions. You don't have to respond immediately, and you have to understand that situations around you can't change them. But the only thing you can change is how you respond to them, how you react to them. That's very important. And one other point one of the points. Hi, is there anyone? Okay. Don't know if maybe they forgot to mute. Yeah, and then one of the key things is, I think, to help women build their self-confidence is to celebrate their achievements, their successes. I think that's something that we don't. I mean, I remember there was a point in my work, like things that I would normally not celebrate, but I'll find some of my colleagues will be excited about them. And that just shows that we think differently. We don't value some of our achievements and other people value them. So definitely that's something that's very important, that we need to celebrate and talk about our successes. There's nothing wrong with that. I think women, we somehow tend to, I don't know, think that, no, maybe it's because of the way we were brought up that we think it's to show off or something, but unfortunately in the corporate, it's necessary. It's sort of like a sign of confidence, that you're confident. So that's something that I also need to work on. And then, so focus, and then also guard against negative self-talk as well. So what we say about ourselves, we shouldn't believe the negative things that people say about ourselves, because we end up internalizing it. And another thing is focus on today. This is what I took from you. You can't change the past, because I think, but you can change the future, because I think sometimes the challenge we have as women is we tend to dwell too much on the failures. Yes, something may have gone wrong, learn from it and move on. Because the more you think too much about what went wrong, it's also going to start affecting your self-confidence. And focus on your contributions, your results, and goals. And I think that's something that I know myself as well. We set goals at the beginning of the year, but I failed to, somewhere in the middle of the year, to pause and sort of like review. I set these goals, how far am I from these goals? I think that's something that will definitely help us. And the other thing that I've seen in corporate as well, I think women, we tend to take on too much work in our work, like in our area of work. So where we end up just accepting work because we feel like we need to show people that what we are capable of, and sometimes we shoot ourselves in the foot, because now taking on more than you can't deliver, it can also create problems, because now you're going to end up creating a bad reputation. Meanwhile, you think you're trying to help. Then I think I'm start seeing some other comments coming in now. I just want to read it. There's someone else, I think, who posted I think Gloria, yes, she says, it's a question, how do you manage behavior change amongst the women process of unlearning and learning to make it the boardroom with male leaders to make it the boardroom with male leaders in corporate? I hope I'm reading this correctly. How do you manage behavior change amongst the women? I guess the process of unlearning. I don't know if you wanna unmute and ask your Gloria. Hopefully she's still here. I'm not sure if. I'm reading it, but I'm not sure if I'm following it myself as well. And I don't know if maybe you can suggest, it says, how do you manage behavior change amongst the women process of unlearning and learning to make it the boardroom with male leaders in corporate?
So the important thing is not about trying to make it or to be par with male leaders, right? So try and do what you can control, because the culture in that organization, if is biased towards women or biased towards men, there's nothing you can do about it, right? But you as an individual, you can show that you can do the work, you align with the values of the company, because that's important. Is there an alignment between you and the values of the organization? That's tip number one. Are you performing, right? Are you adding value in the boardroom? It's a fight that you have to fight. You know, those who see will see over a period of time that you are adding value. You know, values, good, adding value, you have the qualifications. You know, you just have to hang in there, persevere. And if up to a point where as long as the situation is bearable, there are no other things that, you know, you feel that they are now, they are coming into your personal space, because sometimes you might feel that you are attacked personally because you're a woman and because you are seen as a threat because of your capabilities. So you always have to read the situation, try and master organizational politics like we did in the last masterclass. So don't aspire to be like men, or go in there and understand the organizational culture and deliver on what they hired you for. And whoever make decisions, if they're open-minded, they'll see that you are an asset to the organization, and they'll give you an opportunity to move into a leadership role. Some things are outside of our control. Let's do what we can control. You're not going to go and convince all men in the boardroom to be acceptable to female colleagues. Play your part, make your contribution. Whether they take it or they don't, you've made your contribution. Try and be the best that you can ever be. You know, when if things don't go well and you decide, I'm leaving this organization. But the question that you need to ask yourself is, was I the best that I could ever be in that role? Was that the best version of myself? Because if you say yes, then you know you were successful in that role. Because success is all about that. It's about giving your best. And if you did that and still didn't succeed, you try next time. And look at the Olympics. People who are running 100 meters. I mean, every year, every Olympics, there are new records. So there are people who are running faster. People come back, you go and, you know, recondition yourself, train, come back and break, you know, your previous record. You cannot force people to like you in a boardroom, and don't try and be like men, because you have your own unique qualities that makes you a unique leader, and that will make you to be successful. So stay and remain original.
Okay. I think you've answered that question. So I was actually, I saw the question that came in when I was making closing remarks. I felt like we should just take it. So yeah, I think we've come to the end of the session. So I think, from my side, it's definitely, I need to know myself better and know how to manage myself, manage how I respond to situations. And we need to keep investing in ourselves as well. We need to invest every year in ourselves, make sure that we continue to develop ourselves and we show up all the time. Brenda, I'm not sure if you want to say anything before I officially close.
No, thanks, Gertrude. I'm covered on my side.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, thanks for the session.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much, Ashley, for the time you spent sharing with us all these points on how we women can improve on how we view ourselves. And thanks a lot for all the members who joined in and all the organizers. Those who wanted I think you did, Ashley shared his website. Those who are interested in the other, I think it's the innovation sessions you will be having in the next 3 months, and then they can follow you there and check basically the details. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks everyone for your time. Thanks everyone. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.